Hi, and welcome to episode 18. My name is Alan. I'm the host. It features the show April Crawford, who's a full-body open Deep Trance Channel and best-selling author, as well as Veronica, which is our name for a causal plane entity that is one of many entities that we speak with, but Veronica handles all the telephone readings because she knows how to handle an iPhone. And she knows English, which is very helpful when you're talking to people around the world. So what I'm going to do is hand the phone to, and this is how we do it, we hand the phone back and forth. We don't have a $5,000 microphone here or studio. I'm going to hand the phone to April. She'll say a few words, and then when Veronica comes in, we'll take some questions that people have written in on email and on the comment section of this podcast, and then I'll suggest some other topics for Veronica to talk about. So hold on for April.
Hi, everyone. This is my little time spot every week to get to talk. And I've heard from a lot of people that they enjoy hearing about my process and the fact that I'm an actual human being having a human experience while doing all this, I think is interesting to some people. I'd like to talk about today, there was a time where we were doing a lot of group sessions for a particular client, and of course we always look forward to it when we would go do it, and there would be maybe 10, 15 people there that would ask questions and do things, and I just would go in and be able to do it every week. Well, there was one week, because I am a human being, that I sort of had flu-like symptoms all day before the session was supposed to start, say at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. From 7 a.m. to 2:59, I wasn't feeling all that great. And I think it's important to know that having a human experience while trying to do all this work sometimes can be tedious. Now, of course, because I was brought up to be tough about such things, I went anyway. Alan drove me, and when we got there, I really didn't think I could do it. My stomach was churning, felt like I wanted to throw up. It's just like, I can't do this. So I decided to put it in Veronica's hands. I said, look, we have people here, they're looking for a session this afternoon, and I'm the vehicle. And I can remember Veronica whispering in my ear that said, don't worry about it. We'll adjust your body, and we'll make you feel better. Now, in that moment, I was, yeah, right, you're going to make me feel better. Okay, this is great. How am I going to get through the next couple of hours and keep myself coordinated? So I waited till the last minute to come out and sit with everybody. And I stayed way away from everybody because I think I was just like more food poisoning than anything. I was just not well. I started the session, and I can remember going out of body and passing Veronica like in the hallway. And she says, don't worry, I'm going to balance your body. When you come back, it'll be like new. Now, of course, I laughed to myself and says, wait till she gets in that body and finds out how awful it feels. And we'll see what she has to say. So I was out, and of course, I never can measure time when I'm out, but I went to other dimensional spaces and just tried to relax and tried to send as much good vibration to my body as I could. It was a good 3-hour session, and when I got back, everything seemed to be fine. Everybody looked like they had enjoyed themselves, and they said that Veronica had some good insight. And the first thing that I noticed after that is, hey, I don't feel so bad. So it took me a few minutes because I thought, well, it's probably just because, I've been sitting and resting the body and trying to focus on it. But everything that had bothered me all morning and not felt good was gone. In fact, I felt invigorated. I felt like I could do cartwheels through this guy's living room because I felt so good. So I think it's important for everyone to know that when you're channeling, a lot of times the energy that you're channeling can readjust the sort of frequency in the body so that you're not sick. I came out of that, and this fellow always had dinner afterwards. So I went and I ate. I felt great. I even had a little bit of wine. And if you had told me that in the morning, I would have called you a liar. because there was no way I was going to, be able to be not horizontal for that day. So having a relationship with an energy that you channel, I think, is way more than you think it is. Now, of course, you want to have the energy come in and do good works and tell people things that they need to hear, but you also need to understand that it's a personal relationship between you and the energy. Veronica told me she was going to balance me out and I would be okay. And I have to tell you, in the moment, I didn't believe her. I thought, yeah, right. I'm going to feel better, sure. And I did. And for the rest of that week, I felt invigorated. I felt like I could do anything. And some of the minor things like arthritis and stuff that usually bothered me. So it's important to know that if you're on the journey to make that connection with energy, to know that there are some side benefits to it. And to this day, if I have things that are feeling awry in me or feeling a little off-center, Veronica works on it. I had some arthritis in my foot, and she's been working on it for a while, and suddenly it's much better. She told me to get some orthotics, and I got orthotics, and everything has worked out really well. But on a day-to-day basis, if I have a headache, it's gone. If I have any sort of issues, they're gone. So spirit does have the ability to heal, and if you develop your relationship properly with the energy that you're channeling, you can have pretty good health. At least I have. So anyways, that was my 2 bits for the week. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you, April. And while we're waiting for Veronica to drop by, and it will be fairly quickly, I'll just mention that in April's case, Veronica talks to people all around the world 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. So she spends a lot of time, occupying April's form, which April's generous to give up, I think. And so the effects that Veronica can have on April are substantial. Anyway, I'm waiting for, there the eyes are open. Hi, Veronica. So I have a question from Heather, and it's written as a question for Veronica, and I'll just say, Heather and everybody, if you have questions for Veronica, you can address Veronica directly in your questions. You don't have to address me and say, but here's the question. It says, when she sees sadness that is manifested in the linear, i.e. animals or children who suffer and feel pain, tortured or uncared for, what does she feel about it? Does she feel sorrow as well?
We are very emotional. We feel the energy of discomfort and pain very vividly. We extend ourselves to that pain and suffering to attempt to soothe it and fix it. But also in this, there are times where those particular ones, animals or children even, who are very advanced energies, come in to portray and participate in that kind of energy to teach others a bit about themselves. But we do extend ourselves and we do feel it. And many times we are able to give relief. But if the energy is working on something, then we must wait until they finish their project, and then we can help them again.
Thank you, Veronica. This is a question from Ross, who's one of our best commenters, as far as frequency, at least. Anyway, Ross asks, when we die, essentially, will all of our past lives be known?
As soon as you step out of the linear, everything that you've ever experienced becomes available to you because you're not thinking in a linear manner anymore. So everything you've ever experienced, everyone you've ever been, every nuance of experience is available to you. That is why we say you most likely shouldn't make any big decisions. Like many will say to us, I'm never incarnating again. And we say, well, that is certainly a valid thing, and you certainly can choose that. But most likely you will choose it from the perspective of all your awareness rather than just this singular linear life you're living. So yes, you can have it.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. Veronica, when you say you can have it, I think there's, from experience, there's an awful lot of nuance on both sides. So the fact that you can do something doesn't mean you will do something, because you may not have the experience. I mean, half the times, you may not even realize you're dead for a while until your guides get through and say, hey, guess what, you're dead. So, and it also takes knowledge and awareness to even figure that out. And some people are more evolved than others in that regard. I've certainly talked to a bunch of people who had no access whatsoever. They could. So yes, you can, in my opinion, but it takes a certain amount of skill and knowledge and awareness, which is maybe a good idea to think about these things while you're still physical. But let's see what Veronica says.
No matter what soul age you are or how much experience you have, the fact remains, unless you're a very young soul, that when you cross over, you are met by guides, you have discussion, and you do have the ability to take a look at the vast array of experience that you've had. Now, of course, whether or not you embrace it depends upon, again, how much you're aware, how much expansive your consciousness is. But most of the time, there is some sort of impact by knowing all of the other experiences that you've had. Unless you're extremely young and maybe first or second time out, you might not remember and dive right back into the dense linear because you think that's all there is.
Thank you, Veronica. And this is from Catherine. It's long, so I'll paraphrase it. But she wants to know if you have any quick-fire techniques for on-the-spot ones, so to speak, for protecting themselves from negative people in places. And she's saying she's extremely sensitive, and I know that a lot of people are very sensitive to energy, and there's also a term out there, energy suck, and there's also another term out there called energy vampires. And so, Veronica, Catherine would like to know, are there any things that people who are sensitive to that or even aware that it's happening can do to protect themselves or at least void the situation and the drain of energy?
Yes, there are. If you're sensitive, you've had a lot of experience of being bombarded by negative energy and felt the effects of that very clearly. As you progress in your current linear life, you become aware of certain individual energies that probably aren't the best for you to interact with. We say the best protection from that is to know it, to know that there are energies that can be that way. And that means that you don't always extend yourself fully unless you know for certain that the energy you're going to participate with is benevolent enough for you to participate with. On-the-spot moments means if you encounter an energy that is disruptive to yours, you back up immediately. And you make mental note to yourself, this person cannot be trusted with my energy. I have to be aware that there is probability that they will maybe attack me in some way or try to take energy from me in some way. Being sensitive isn't all that easy, but being sensitive is very important to the reality. Your presence is most likely having an impact on a reality that really needs it. But you do have to be mindful, and it could be somebody that you're friends with. And how do you handle that? You start by limiting the amount of time you spend with them and knowing where the trigger points are, and maybe have a less intimate exchange with them, and protect yourself by backing up whenever you have to. Most people who would do that are pretty skilled at it because they probably spent the whole life taking energy from everyone else or being negative. So being mindful and being honest but kind and not participating with them so much. Sometimes you have to cut yourself off from negativity, especially if you're sensitive.
Thank you, Veronica. And I might add, avoid watching the evening news, which is always negative. Here's a question for Veronica. How can spirit entities see without having eyes? And how can spirit entities hear without having ears?
Because everything is frequency. We look through the April Crawford's eyes, but the vision part of it in the physical is not always sharp and clear. But what we do see is the frequency of those around us. Like we're looking across and we see the Alan Crawford. We're not seeing him with physical eyes so much. Using April's, we can do it minorly, but it's frequency and the vibration. And the same holds true for hearing. We hear the vibration of the tones that you put out. So it's not so much a physical linear experience, it's more of an energetic experience, and something that allows us to see more clearly into the forms we are talking to. And if we're talking to someone over the phone, we can sense their energy and move into it to see it clearly, but not see it with eyes, but to see it by frequency.
Thank you, Veronica. And this came in from an email. And it's from Johnny. And he says, can the dead relative use telepathic communication to get a message to us?
Yes, they can use telepathics to get a message to you, but you have to remember that they are now without form. They are without density. And the environment that you're in is a very dense environment. So for them to get a message through to you, it would have to be energetic. Sometimes it has words attached to it, sometimes it's symbolic, but it's very infrequent that you hear like words. So we'll say telepathic is probably one of the avenues, but not the only one.
Okay, Veronica, and of course I have a follow-up. And it's similar to the first question or two, and that is, does it require experience in variables and openness on both ends of the equation? Because, obviously, most people on this planet can't even hear their spirit guides, who could be their higher source entities who are extremely experienced and skillful, and they can't get through. If somebody's recently dead, they may have a bigger challenge depending on how aware they are and how well their guides are doing interacting with them. But on this side, the physical side, how open they are. I mean, what they're focused on. I know I have a lot of trouble getting direct messages myself, and I'm like into this stuff big time. And the question is, what about the variables that would allow somebody who's recently dead to communicate with someone? Does it take skill and awareness on both sides of the equation?
Yes, it does. It's probably more difficult for the energy and spirit to move into the density than for the density to move into spirit. So we would say it's dependent upon the individual energy. And some who have crossed over, let's say that they crossed over maybe a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, takes from your perception a bit of linear time for them to become aware of their surroundings, go through their review and their contemplation. And it might, when they're doing that, they're a little bit unavailable. But once that is completed, then we think that they start working on the ability to extend themselves through that density so they can get to you, especially when it's soulmate kind of stuff and, connective kind of stuff with someone that you've loved for a very long time. Could be a parent, could be a sweetheart. They always are trying, but you have to take into consideration they're not dense, and it's a dense reality. So we do think they work on it and try to keep doing it. Some are very successful at the very beginning, and others, it takes a little bit more time. But at the end of the day, those that you have loved that are no longer around do want to communicate and do want to extend themselves. It's just that they have a new environment that they're in, and they have to adjust to it.
Veronica, here's another question. And this is from Cynthia Boston, and this was an email that came in. And said, Dear Veronica, is it possible that my best friend, husband, sister, or worst nemesis could be one of my parallel lives? Is it possible that I I could be all of the cast of the characters in my personal play. Thank you.
Parallel lives are you with different dramas and different outcomes. Unlikely they would all be located into one conglomerate right now. No, you are not the whole cast of characters, because we can see your energy and we can see different energies coming in to participate with you. There would be parallel life where you are having this particular experience only with different nuances, perhaps some different characters that were involved in it, or a different agenda of what you wish to accomplish, but not in the way that you have stated.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Here's another one directly related to parallel lives that also came in from emails from Adrian. It says, Dear Veronica, I understand that we're living parallel lives. My question is, when we leave this plane on, are our parallel lives also finished? Now, this is a question that Veronica answered in the newsletter, but for those who don't get the newsletter and only listen to the podcast, I thought it would be good for Veronica to speak on the subject.
Each individual that is incarnate does have parallel lives. They can vary from 2 or 3 all the way up to maybe 20 or 30 parallel lives. Each of them are involved in a timeline of some sort. If one parallel life decides to opt out of physical reality, the other, say 10 lives, do continue. They are not synced up, or nor are they in harmony, because for you to live to, say, the age of 90 in one life and maybe the age of 20 in another life happens. So though they're not synced up, they're very different, and you can have one remaining life that's sort of dangling out there and keeps going even after all the other parallel lives have gone home, so to speak. So no, they are not synced up and very different and varied in how they evolve themselves.
Thank you, Veronica. Now, I have another question about kind of like how you do things. And that is, you talk to people from all around the world. They call in and have readings. And they're not just from all these different countries, some of them quite diverse, but also from different cultures. I'm talking about really different cultures and different religions. So on the one hand, you've got someone who's in Japan who barely speaks English, and it has a certain religious and cultural context. And then Native Americans, we've also talked completely different. And then all the different religions in different countries, and even some that don't speak English, and they have a translator there with them to relay what you say back to the person asking the question. And we're talking all continents except Antarctica. So if you're down there in Antarctica, come on. Anyway, Veronica, my question is, how can you be sensitive to all of these different variables, and especially then all the different variables of subjects that people talk to, and take it far enough so that they get it and they get great value out of it, but not so far that you scare them, like if they have really steeped religious belief or something. I remember we had a group session with a business group, and there was a person who was very aggressive. He was a warrior type. He was angry. And I listened to you answer his questions, and then I later asked you, well, it sounded like you were holding back, Veronica. You weren't really, going for it. And you said, I took it as far as I could because I knew if I went any further, we would lose him. And so I guess that's the crux of my question. Like, how can you be sensitive to all these people? And I don't mean just, but how do you do it? You just know because you're a causal plane entity. You have to, talk to their spirit guides, or how do you figure it out?
We are a causal plane entity, to be truly honest. But when we work with individual energy, There are some who are very steeped in their linear dogma. It doesn't serve their growth to challenge that. We talk as far as we can, take them as far as we can take them, and then we allow them to be who they are, because their process is their process. We find that to challenge someone doesn't serve the higher good. So we decide always individualistically to ride the energy wave with that individual and see how far they can go. And if they can only go so far, okay, so be it. Maybe next time they'll go a little further. That's how growth works. Always standard. Some grow faster than others. So to challenge someone's belief system, we would never do that. Because if you're ingrained in it, it brings you comfort, and it brings you into sort of a spiritual moment. So we would not rob anyone of that. And if someone is angry, you don't need to fan the flames of that fire. What we want to do is put it out. We want them to become less angry. And by being calm and benevolent with them, serves more purpose than to be challenging and saying, hey, we're a causal plane entity. Who are you? No, we're not here to do that. We're here to bring comfort. We're here to expand consciousness. And if someone's in a certain belief system, we honor them because they've made a choice. We're here just to expand their awareness so they can make other choices.
Okay. Thank you, Veronica. And as a final question before, Veronica's message to you in the world, some people write in and they want to know, because they get the newsletter and even if they listen to these broadcasts, they want to know, when people get readings, is it general, broad audience kind of stuff, which we have to pretty much do for the main section of the Inner Whispers newsletter, although the Dear Veronica sections are individual. But they want to know, if they talk to you, are you talking to them individually, specifically, or is it like reading the astrology papers in the Sunday Times?
When we connect to someone individually, and even if we're in a group, connect to someone individually, it's all about them. We narrow down the focus and we look merely into their energy and how that energy is interacting with the bigger energy. It's not standard. It's not broad. And sometimes we have people say, whoa, how did you know that? Because we can move into their energy and see it. So no, it's not a broad picture. It's a very individualistic, personal picture.
Thank you, Veronica. And here's the part of the broadcast and podcast that Veronica will give you and the world her message for the day.
How about today you decide to be the pebble that's thrown into the pond? Now, all of you at some point have probably thrown a pebble into a standing mass of water. And if you stood and watched it, you see how the ripple effect goes out, and it changes the stance of the pond or the thing of water. Why not decide today to be the pebble that you're going to, in any situation that you're involved in, you're going to allow your energy to come in and plop right in the center of that pond. And the ripple effect that comes from you can change the stance of the current pond that you're in. If you stand back sometimes and do nothing and just let the water stand, you're not really contributing as much as you could. We think all of you should decide to be bold every day and say, look, I'm not here to destroy the pond. I'm here to insert my energy into it with that pebble and perhaps make it better. Do it with good intention. Do it with a warm heart. Now, don't expect immediate results because it takes a while for the ripples to go all the way through the pond. But if you intentionally insert good energy into the environment you're in, eventually those ripples are going to change the stagnant energy and perhaps even the negative energy that exists in the pond. So every day decide to be the pebble. You do it lovingly. You do it with the expectation that things are going to be better. And you do it with the idea that, yeah, I'm just one person, but I'm pretty forceful, and I have a real belief in the goodness in people and the goodness of the universe in general. Try that. Be the pebble. Make the difference.
Thank you, Veronica. And as I like to say, that concludes the interesting part of this broadcast. Hope to see you next time. I remind you, if you'd like more information about April Crawford or Veronica, you can do so at aprilcrawford.com, or just go to Amazon and search April Crawford. A bunch of stuff there. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.